Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror action movie called The Shaft. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in New York City, where we see a skyscraper called the Millennium Building. There, two perverted security guards are using a telescope to spy on hookers in another building. Where did they get a telescope? When their boss summons them, they head to the elevator. One of them goes to the restroom while his colleague waits outside. At this moment, the man notices the elevator acting strangely, and his flashlight is crushed between the doors. But before he can figure out what happened, his colleague returns from the restroom and they both board the elevator. The next morning, we meet two mechanics, Mark and Jeff, who work for an elevator company. Mark complains that his job is boring, but an annoyed Jeff tells him to appreciate what he has. It turns out that Jeff had arranged this new job for him, so he begs his friend not to disappoint him again. Back at the Millennium Building, a group of pregnant women enters the elevator after their usual exercise session. However, instead of taking them to their designated floor, it begins to descend rapidly. One of the scared women presses the open button, but it does not work. When they realize they are stuck, they panic and attempt to call for help, but there's no signal. The situation becomes so intense that two women end up going into labor. Meanwhile, outside the elevator, building officials become aware of the situation. Two workers are summoned and attempt to open the door, but are unsuccessful. A security guard gets very worried when he learns that his pregnant wife is inside. He grabs a large axe and makes a desperate attempt to break the door. Seems dangerous. In the end, the door opens itself, and the guards are shocked to discover that two women have given birth inside.
We love adrenaline,
say the babies. The scene then shifts to Mark and Jeff arriving at a diner for breakfast. They sit down to eat, but Jeff suddenly receives a call about the malfunctioning elevators in the Millennium Building. This forces the duo to abandon their breakfast and rush to the location. Elsewhere, we meet a young journalist named Jennifer, who is summoned to her boss's office. He informs her of the incidents involving the Millennium Building's malfunctioning elevator. He then orders her to go there right away and cover the story before their competitors. This is hot stuff. Shortly after, Jennifer arrives at the building and sees many women being taken into an ambulance. She attempts to interview them, but the medical staff escorts them away. Meanwhile, Mark and Jeff also arrive at the building and meet with a building staff member. The guy leads them to the engine room while explaining the earlier incident. He also talks about Jeff's former colleague, Kowalski, who had committed the unthinkable. Elevator maintenance really is boring, but this only annoys Jeff, and he asks the guy to leave. The duo then gets to work and starts checking every piece of machinery in the engine room, but even after hours of inspection, they fail to find anything wrong. Somewhere in the building, a blind man and his dog are seen leaving a salon. He boards an elevator, but quickly realizes that the buttons are not working properly. This forces him to leave and take another elevator instead, but as soon as he opens the door, we see that there is nothing to step on except a vast abyss. His dog barks several times to warn him, but the man does not understand. What else could the barks mean? Tragically, he falls into the elevator shaft, pulling his dog, who did not deserve this, along with him. In the evening, Mark goes to see his girlfriend at her house. The couple had a fight last night, so he has brought her flowers to apologize. But to his surprise, he discovers her sleeping with another man, breaking his heart.
I'm keeping these flowers!
Meanwhile, two security guards in the Millennium Building are notified that the elevators are acting strangely again. Upon investigating, they discover an elevator door that opens and closes on its own. One guard peeks inside and finds the dog hanging from a rope in the shaft. Let's blur that out. Before he can report the situation, the door closes unexpectedly, trapping his head between them. He urges his partner to do something, but the elevator begins to descend. As a result, he is brutally decapitated, leaving his partner horrified. Afterward, Mark returns to the building and Jennifer follows him into the bathroom. She inquires about the elevators for her news story, but Mark dismisses her, claiming that everything is fine. When she persists, he sarcastically remarks that elevators enjoy killing people, and that 1 out of every 10 people who enter them might die. Jennifer isn't satisfied with his answer and continues to follow him, but the security guards restrain her. Later, Jeff and Mark meet with the building's manager Milligan and other executives. They inquire about the inspection, and Jeff explains that they ran a thorough check but found no flaws. Mark then suggests they seal off the elevator for a few days so that they can conduct further investigation. However, Milligan claims it's not feasible, as they will suffer significant financial losses. Jeff also agrees with them and ensures that the elevator's completely safe. Why don't you get in it, Jeff? The following morning, when Mark comes to work, he is shocked to learn that Jennifer has published his face in the newspaper. She has also written about his statement that elevators are dangerous. His boss, Mitchell, summons him to his office and confronts him about his statement. Mark apologizes, claiming that he was just joking. He didn't expect her to write about it. However, Mitchell reveals that because of the news, police are now seeing Mark as a suspect. They're referring to him as Darth Elevator. Later, Mark notices Jeff arguing with a man dressed in a lab coat. Upon asking his colleague, he discovers that the man is Dr. Steinberg, who designs the electronic components of their elevator. Mark then inquires about Jeff's former colleague Kowalski and learns that he committed the unthinkable by setting himself and his car on fire. Elevator repair is really boring. Meanwhile, we see two guys skateboarding into the Millennium Building's garage. Moments later, one of them collides with a car and gets injured. He sits on the floor for a while, but suddenly the elevator door behind him opens and sucks him inside. It then takes him to the 86th floor, from which he is thrown out of the building to his death. Sometime later, Mark sees the news on TV and discovers that the police have ruled it as a self-kill. He rushes to the building to investigate, but the guards refuse to let him in. At this moment, he spots Jennifer among the journalists and quickly approaches her. She apologizes for writing about him, stating that she had nothing else for her story. Mark forgives her this time, but asks her not to mention him again in her paper. In the evening, Jennifer pays Mark a surprise visit at his home. She shows him CCTV footage of the skater's death, which is very strange. Jennifer points out that the time it normally takes for the elevator to ascend 86 floors would be about 40 seconds to a minute. However, in the video, the elevator reaches those floors in less than 2 seconds. Hearing the phrase less than 2 seconds makes Mark ruminate as to why his ex left him, and he is shocked by the information and struggles to understand what's happening. They then go to meet Jeff and try to show him the video, but he seems preoccupied with something else. He refuses to listen to them and drives off somewhere. Later, at a restaurant, Mark explains to Jennifer how various parts of the elevator operate. He also talks about Steinberg, who designed the elevator's electronic components for his company. The two then go to Jennifer's office and do some research on Steinberg. They discover that his first name is Gunther, and he once experimented with organically reproducing computer chips using dolphin brains. The fuck? However, the project went horribly wrong, and Steinberg was fired because the computers kept going. He then began working for the elevator company, as he had a lot of experience in the field. Upon learning all of this, Jennifer is convinced that Steinberg is involved in the mysterious deaths. The next morning, Milligan is wandering around the building when he discovers Jeff's body in an elevator shaft. When Jennifer and Mark arrive, they are shocked to learn that the police have once again ruled it as a self-kill. Furthermore, the building executives label Jeff as a terrorist and inform the public that the threat is over. Mark doesn't believe that his friend could do such a thing, so he and Jennifer set out to find the truth. In the afternoon, the duo decides to visit the house of Kowalski, who died some time ago. There, they meet with his widow, who reveals that her husband didn't die in a car accident. She explains that he was murdered in an elevator shaft because he knew something he wasn't supposed to know. According to the woman, her husband's spirit still haunts the elevator, and that's why people are constantly dying. Back in the building, we see a group of people entering the elevator. Things start to go wrong again when the elevator begins to accelerate quickly. Someone quickly presses the emergency button, which obviously does not work. This sends everyone into a state of panic, and one child even craps his pants. To make matters worse, the floors suddenly split, causing people to fall into the shaft and die. The elevator then continues to speed up until it finally breaks through the roof of the building. After the incident, the President of the United States issues a statement, calling it an act of terrorism. A SWAT team is then stationed at the building to prevent anyone from entering. In the meantime, Mitchell meets with Steinberg and blames him for everything. The latter claims that it is only a minor setback in his rather grand plans that will change humanity. Mitchell refuses to believe this and urges him to find a solution as soon as possible. However, Steinberg says that things have gotten out of hand and are beyond his control. In the evening, Jennifer arrives at the building in a van, while Mark hides in the back seat. She claims that he's from the elevator company, but the guards ask her to open the van door. Jennifer reluctantly obliges and steps out to open the door. Just then, she receives a call from her coworker, whom she had asked to investigate Steinberg. He reveals that even after Steinberg was fired, he continued to work on biochips, though not with dolphin brains, but with something else. He advises Jennifer to be cautious and hangs up the phone. During this time, Mark manages to sneak out of the van and enter the Millennium Building. In the next scene, the cops find out that Jennifer was not sent by the elevator company, so they lock her up in a room. Mark, on the other hand, discovers a large biochip in the shape of a massive brain in an elevator shaft. It turns out that this organ is still alive and controls the elevators. He tries to destroy it with a screwdriver, but fails when a burning elevator descends toward him. Mark barely escapes, while the elevator kills a SWAT officer who was just stepping out of the shaft. Mark then discovers the officer's missile launcher and attempts to destroy the organ. Is this a cartoon or what am I recapping? But Steinberg arrives and intervenes. He points a gun at Mark and tells him not to destroy his creation. The two then get into a fight and Steinberg nearly kicks Mark down the shaft, but Jennifer arrives just in time and holds him at gunpoint. At this moment, the SWAT team shows up and orders everyone to drop their weapons. Steinberg seizes the opportunity to hold Jennifer hostage once more, but she manages to break free. Moments later, the villain is attacked by his own creation and sucked inside alongside Mark. But Jennifer manages to pass the missile launcher to Mark just in time. He then grabs the launcher and fires at the organ, finally destroying it. The force of the explosion pushes him out, while Steinberg's mutilated corpse falls seconds later. The scene then shifts to several days later, where Mark is seen leaving the hospital after his recovery. Jennifer arrives to pick him up, and as they leave, they become trapped in an elevator. She starts freaking out, thinking the demon is back, but Mark suddenly begins laughing, revealing that it was just a prank. Mark, you dick. The movie ends as he pulls her closer and kisses her. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.